It's not even April 20th, but it's close enough, so happy belated 420. There's very little that I could possibly say here that's more important than music, so I'm not going to take up too much of your time. I know that the music's important. I'm going to let you get back to that. But SSDP invited me here to share some information with all of you about what's taking place at the Capitol, which is, as you know, just straight up Highland Road to the north there. And you run into your house, the Capitol, at the end of that street, and I encourage you all to go there whenever you get a chance, if you haven't been. I want you to know that I also helped found the original SSDP chapter here at LSU and another organization called Canola, which was the Cannabis Action Network of Louisiana. And now I represent an organization called Simple, or Sensible Marijuana Policy for Louisiana, as well as I'm a speaker for a group called LEAP, which is Law Enforcement Against Prohibition, which is open to former judges and prosecutors, DEA agents who have had a change of heart, sheriffs, and anybody like that, police officers. And I've talked to so many police officers while I was a prosecutor who hate to have to do it, wish that we would change the laws, and they understand that it's a misallocation of the resources. And I just wish those guys could stand up and say something, but they're working, they're employed, and they can't. Well, it's our job to get to the Capitol and change the law so that they don't have to enforce the law against, nonviolent offenders. I want to just mention four things. The four main things are what's at stake, what it takes, what it looks like, and what you can do to help. And I'll be out of here in probably 3 minutes. Okay. I just want to start off with this familiar quote that most of you have probably heard. It's from Edmund Burke, or at least it's attributed to Edmund Burke, and it says, "The only thing that's necessary for the triumph of evil is for good men to do nothing." You've probably heard that, right? Take out the part in there where it says good men, because that's, I don't know, things were different then and they didn't get the sex right. But for good men and women to do anything, the only thing that's necessary for evil to triumph is for good men or women to do nothing. And set aside the discussion about what is evil, and then you're left with the very important point that the only thing that is necessary for bad things to happen at the Capitol is for us to sit by and let that happen. And I assure you that if you want bad things to happen, you should stay away from the Capitol, your Capitol. Don't go there. Don't send an email or snail mail. Don't call them. And that's typically what happens every day. And then decisions are left to the legislators and to well-paid lobbyists who fill their ears with the misinformation and the lies and fill their pocketbooks. And then meanwhile, Louisiana, the citizens hold fast to the 50th place, that position, and nothing gets better. And there are actually a handful of good drug law reform bills at the legislature this year. So that's what's at stake. That's the first thing. For the first time in memory, there are 8 to 12 drug law reform bills. I mean, there are some of them that aren't doing the right thing. So say 8 or so that are doing good things or seek to do good things, and they do not stand a chance without your involvement. That's the first message I want to get across to you, is what's at stake. What it takes, let's think about what success would take from our perspective. Well, our two principal opponents in this reform effort are the state's sheriffs and the district attorneys. So the people who arrest us and jail us and the people who process us or decide what to do with us in our courthouses around this. So the sheriffs are vested interests in this. They're running some of the state prisons. Can you hear me? All right. The sheriffs have a financial interest in this, and they've come out in force against this and will continue to do so because they have a clear, unquestionable, and demonstrable vested interest in the status quo and keeping the profits, in locking up more of us and our friends and our fellow citizens in state-run jails. So when you go up against big money at the Capitol, the only way to defeat that is to either have big money yourself or to have people power on your side, and that's where all of you come in. When we were doing SSDP in Canola, we had nowhere near this level of awareness when we got started, either on campus or nationally. Things have really changed since then, and that's to our advantage because, as I say, the only way you can beat them is with the crowd of people standing by your side, that people power. And you know what? The legislators really do care about what you think as college students. They expect apathy from you. And when they don't see that, you shock them. So you have that element of surprise. And they also just want to stay relevant to you. I mean, in order for them to keep getting elected, once you graduate from school or when you start voting, which can happen now if you're, if you're living here, if you're not from out of state, you can vote here. And so they definitely want to stay relevant to you. So don't ever think that your opinion doesn't matter to them. The third thing I wanted to get across here is that what it looks like. And I want to describe what magic looks like when you're at that sausage factory up the road. What magic looks like is when people defeat the moneyed interests. When you get up there and you're in committee, and I've seen it happen, and you just pack it till it's standing room only in that committee, and the lobbyists can't do anything about it because the folks that are about to vote on that piece of legislation are looking at you, you're looking at them, and they've got to do the right thing in that moment, and that's when magic happens. So you make a lot of calls, and you send a lot of letters and emails, and then you fill that room with your supporters. You make your compelling remarks, and then with your people power, you defeat that influence of big money. And then eventually your state has the freedom and an improved democracy that works better for most everybody. So think about it. In this state, just last year, we took a poll. We finally took that poll that we needed to do to find out where our state stands, and we found out that 65% of your neighbors all around you in Louisiana, north to south, even conservatives, self-identified evangelicals, blacks and whites, and everybody all around the state, even in North Louisiana, 65% support medical marijuana. You should give yourself an applause for that, because that was before we had done anything, before we lifted a finger to do anything. The voters get it. You know, that's huge. 65%. I mean, we're on conference calls nationally with other states and with organizations like the Marijuana Policy Project, who I interned for while I was living in D.C. and working on Capitol Hill, the Drug Policy Alliance, and NORML, and all the national groups. You look at states that have 21 states in D.C. that have medical marijuana or that have decriminalized or made some significant advances in drug law reform. They all started out, or most all of them started out lower than that. And Louisiana is already at 65%, so that's huge. And it reminds me that we can absolutely do this. But think about that, 65% supporting medical marijuana and 56%, another solid number, solid majority, supporting decriminalization. So I'm not up here to call anyone evil, heading, back to that quote, but if people are being locked up for this, not for the sake of helping them or making society safer, but for the purpose of making select individuals in the prison industry richer, and on top of that, you're keeping people who need the medicine from having their medicine, I'm just going to say, I'll be always fighting against you. And I ask all of you to join me in that fight, because you actually have the majority of the citizens on your side. They just need some folks to go up there to the Capitol and make sure that their representatives and their senators hear that message. So I've seen that magic up there, and I hope, and it feels as good as watching magic always does. Since you were a little kid, it's a fascinating thing, and I hope y'all are up there when this happens, because it will happen. And finally, I'll leave you with thoughts on what you can do to help. We're focusing our attention in the remaining weeks on just 2 bills, because the session ends on June the 2nd, but you don't always know when the legislators are going to decide to meet. They don't keep regular hours, and effectively you may only have 3 to 4 weeks left in the session. So even though there are, as I mentioned, about 8 bills or so remaining, they're not going to all move through the legislature. There are 2 that we're focusing on, and one is House Bill 906, and I think there's literature over there on the SSDP table. I sure hope all of you will go over there and pick some of that up. But that's HB 906 on decriminalization, and